Hello everyone. Today I'm going to be walking you through assembling the sled for your Maslow 4. I'm going to show you what parts we pulled from our box, and you should also have the website up so you can follow along with the written instructions if needed. So, to start, we have our stepper motors, 2 of them, as well as our 2 bags of hardware. You might have already opened these if you start at another step. 2 linear rod clamps. This is what they look like outside of the bag. Our 2 linear rods. The dust cover shield, it's actually clear plastic under some film. And, of course, our sled. Okay, we're going to start by opening the 2 bags of nuts and screws. You may have already done this in an earlier step, but this is the first video I'm filming, so I'm gonna go ahead and open them. I also specially prepared a little box to hold the screws and nuts. This isn't included in the kit. It's just something I had on hand to help make sure I don't drop everything everywhere. If you dump them out, you'll notice one of the bags also has the little Allen wrench inside of it. So make sure you set that aside because that is what we are going to be using to build most of the machine. Once you have them dumped out, make sure to sort through and try to find 8 of the really short screws. Most of them are the same length, like a 12 millimeter, but a handful of them, I think there are 10 shorter screws, but we only need 8 of them. We made sure to order extra of most of these parts, so if you drop one and lose it, there's a good chance there's an extra in the pack, so don't stress too much. It takes me a while to find the 8th one. And there we go. Set those aside. You're going to need them in a moment. Go ahead and grab the 2 stepper motors. Everything was on top of my sled, so I need the sled for this part, so I had to move everything as well. Now in the center of the sled, you will see 2 circular indents for the stepper motors. Each one should have 4 screw holes in the corners, and you orient the motors with the cords facing out. If you flip the sled over, you should be able to line up the holes in the motors with the holes in the sled, and then you just drop the screws in from the bottom of the sled and tighten it with the Allen wrench. You probably won't want to make them too tight at first. They should move a little in case you need to line up the other holes. I like to tighten each screw just a bit and then go back through and tighten them once they're all in place. I also like to use the Allen wrench in the vertical orientation when initially trying to catch the threads, and then to tighten them up just a bit, I use the Allen wrench in the horizontal orientation just to get a little more force on those. They don't need to be extremely tight, just hand tight. Nice. As you can see, the cord is on the outside. Onto the next stepper motor. This video is going to contain a lot of repetitive steps. The reason for that is we wanted to make sure everything was included, so we didn't want to speed up the tutorial at all. More information is always better, and that way you can get a real sense of how long this is going to take. And if we sped things up, it might not convey that. But if you move faster than I do in this video, feel free to skip ahead. Oops. And there we go. Both of our stepper motors are attached with the cords on the outside. For this next step of the process, we're going to be adding the dust cover. This is a piece of clear plastic with a film on it, so go ahead and pull that film off. It's kind of fun. The second piece, you'll see I struggle with it a little bit. But again, in the spirit of showing some of the tricky parts here, wanted to include it. If you see me looking up a lot, it's because I have an overhead camera and I want to make sure that you can see what I'm showing you on the overhead camera. There we go. Got it. I also take the chance here in a minute to polish the cover a little bit with my elbow to get any fingerprints off of it, because the inside of that cover is going to be inaccessible once it gets screwed down. Nice. I drop it into place. It's a little hard to see because it's clear, but there are 6 screw holes in the cover. So I pick out 6 screws and also 6 of the locking nuts. The kit includes both locking nuts and non-locking nuts. You can choose whichever you like. I like using the locking ones, but if you are going to modify your kit, it might be easier to use the non-locking nuts. There we go, 6 screws and 6 nuts. At this stage, I flip over the sled while holding the dust cover on the underside. Then I drop one of the nuts into the underside of the sled and place the screw in place also from the underside. It's a little difficult to keep the sled upside down while holding the dust cover and the screw. And then you have to tighten the screw from the underside. If you see me talking, I'm telling Bar how frustrating this part is, and eventually you'll see him come over to help me out. He's built these a couple more times than I have, so he has a couple tips and tricks. At this stage, I get frustrated and add a little bit of tape to hold the dust cover in place. That way you don't have to hold it while you're flipping the sled back and forth. Not a mandatory step, but certainly helpful. Just 3 pieces will do it. For this one, I drop the screw in first and then flip the sled over to place the nut on top. To be honest, it didn't work that well, but I wanted to show that that is one way to try it out. One of the things that can happen as you're inserting the nut into the underside of the sled, it can slide sideways so that the screw won't be able to grab the threads. Bar eventually shows me a trick to insert them using the Allen wrench so that they are properly aligned. And then you can keep your finger over the hole so that it won't fall out as you flip the sled back and forth. That was an example of me putting it in sideways and having to flip the sled over to get it back out. There we go. Bar now is demonstrating the technique he's figured out to make this process a lot easier. You first thread the nut onto the Allen wrench, find your hole, slide the nut in using the Allen wrench so that it's properly aligned. You can then put the screw onto the Allen wrench as well and screw it in from the bottom. And then I grab the sled back and say, I want to do it. After learning that trick, it does go a lot faster. So you should try that out. I was also thinking that for this stage of the process, it might be easier to hold the sled vertically in your lap so that you can, for instance, put the nut in with the left hand and then tighten the screw with the right hand. But because I was filming this, that didn't seem like a good option for the overhead camera and the perspective camera. Practice makes perfect, and by the last 2 screws in the dust cover, I really have it dialed. I'm checking to see if I can find the last screw hole. And as you can see, I dropped the nut in with the Allen wrench. Whoops. And then use the Allen wrench to insert the screw from the underside. I do keep dropping things. Again, in the spirit of really showing you what this looks like, I decided to keep all of these moments of me dropping things in the video. And with that, I'm done with attaching the dust cover, and I take the pieces of tape off because we won't be needing them anymore. The dust cover should be firmly attached. And then I go back through with the Allen wrench just to make sure everything's tight. And there, the dust cover and the stepper motors have been attached. For this next stage of the process, we are going to be adding the 2 metal linear rods to the sled. You can see there are 2 little holes where they go. Just grab one and slot it in there and push it down so that it contacts the bottom of the sled. You can also take a little hammer and gently give it a couple taps just to make sure it's seated all the way down in there. It should be a snug fit. We don't want these moving in the future. Little tap tap. Nice. The next step, you're going to take the 2 linear rod clamps. They are 2 plastic parts that kind of look like flowers, and just slide those down over the linear rod. There are 4 holes at the base that should line up with the holes in the clamp so that you can screw them in. Make sure to press them all the way down. They're going to apply pressure to that bottom part that holds the linear rod so that these won't move. Next, you're going to grab more screws to attach those clamps in place. You're going to need 8. Here I flip the sled over to check if there is a slot for nuts as well, and there is. So we will also need 8 of the locking nuts. Making sure I have all 8 and I'm missing one. There we go. Set that aside. And you're going to, similar to attaching the dust shield, this one's a little easier though. You insert the nut from the underside of the sled with the screw on the upper side. Hold that in place with your finger. And then you can tighten down that screw. It's a little trickier here as well because you're close to the linear rod. So tightening the screw with the Allen wrench is a little tricky, not too bad, but that linear rod might get in your way. Again, inserting the nut from the bottom, holding it in place with your finger, flipping the sled back over, and then tightening up that screw. For this one, I like to do the screws on opposite sides of the linear rod, just to make sure that everything is lining up okay. I'm laughing here because I keep dropping one of the screws into the hexagonal pattern on the sled. It's a little tricky to get out after that happens, so I keep flipping the sled over to get it out. If you have tweezers or a magnet or maybe sticky tack, you can get those screws out if you drop them in there much easier. Also, the holes that hold the nuts for adding the linear rod clamp are rather deep. I was able to still use my finger to hold the nut in place, but one of the tricks you can do is add a second nut just to push it up deep enough into the hole and then hold both of them in place with your finger. That secondary nut should pop out quite easily at the end, or you can pry it out with the end of your Allen wrench. And then once all of your screws are in, I went ahead and tightened down those screws. Be careful not to over tighten this part because it does apply pressure to the base of the linear rod. It can get too tight. I noticed that at this stage, the linear rod clamp wasn't seated all the way down onto the sled, so it took me a minute of messing with it to make sure that it was seated all the way down. And then I move on to the last screw for this stage of the assembly. Again, you can see as I'm flipping things back and forth, I make sure to keep my fingers on the screws and the nuts so that they don't fall out. At this stage, I go through and I tighten all of the screws for the dust cover, the stepper motors, and the linear rods, just to make sure everything is tightened up for this stage of assembly. And with that, I flip it over to get the stepper motor screws as well. And then you are done with the assembly of your sled.